Kenny Cunningham, I'm in shock, I think, because it finished Liverpool 7, Manchester United 0. Nobody would have predicted this. Where did it all go wrong for Manchester United? Starting with an easy one.
How much battery charge is on that camera?
Well, you did actually make a very important point during the commentary, Kenny, in which you said the Manchester United setup and putting Bruno Fernandes in the left. I think that left a lot of people scratching their heads because they're thinking Alexander-Arnold, he's a weak link in that Liverpool back four. So what was Ten Hag thinking?
Yeah, look, I'm not suggesting that one tactical change or tweak was responsible for the 7-0 drubbing that Manchester United got, but it did surprise me a little bit because, look, I understand Rashford is very capable of playing as a number 9 down centrally, is pacing behind. I can understand that. I think he can impact the game just as much as a central striker as he can off the left-hand side. Problem is when you flip Bruno Fernandes onto the left-hand side, you lose any real penetration down that side of the pitch. You can't beat anybody on the outside in kind of a 1v1 situation. So you sacrifice any natural width down your left-hand side. Then you're totally dependent on your right winger to give you that little bit of quality 1v1 and maybe a little bit of width down the right-hand side. And Anthony, it's either a feast or a famine with him so far in his Manchester United career. You can't trust him. So so that surprised me a little bit. I just feel that unbalances United. When I see Fernandes as a 10 behind a central striker, whether that's Rashford or Weghorst, and two natural wingers on the flanks, take your pick, whether it's Rashford, Sancho, Anthony or Garnacho. I think there's a nice bit of balance there, and you've got wide players who can beat people in 1v1 situations, and Fernandes can best influence the game in that kind of central position. So that was a surprise to me. I wouldn't exactly say Manchester United suffered because of it, because Rashford on occasion did look threatening in behind, but I just thought it unbalanced him. I didn't think it helped. But I mean, at half-time, Manchester United rolling in 1-0 at half-time, you certainly wouldn't have expected the kind of avalanche that we got in the second half. I think Ten Hag would have been happy with what he saw first half, but he wouldn't have been unduly upset. There would have been no, cups of tea getting thrown around the dressing room. He would have said to his players, come on, we can do better. We're still in this game. Let's go again. But they just never got going. Liverpool never allowed them. Just really stepped onto them second half, Liverpool, and ferocious intensity, kind of physicality, went after them, wrestled the ball off them, kind of bullied them almost. The Liverpool of old, you could suggest, and very clinical when the opportunities presented themselves, and there was plenty of them in the second half.
We could talk about the manager all day, but at some point the players have to take responsibility. And there was a lot of talk last week after the EFL Cup win against Newcastle about the United players kind of thinking, right, we've done this now, the League Cup win is in the bag, we move on now because we have to start thinking about the next few challenges, whether it be putting pressure on the top two in the Premier League, trying to win the Europa League, trying to win the FA Cup. As a supporter, if you travel down to Anfield and watch that performance in the second half, you must be fuming after all that talk last week, and then United's players put in what really was an embarrassing second half performance. Yeah,
you would be fuming, but I suppose you'd have to temper that somewhat when you look at the run Manchester United have been on previous to that. You've mentioned it there already, the high level of consistency that they've performed at, and they've been saying all the right things even off the back of the Carabao Cup win against Newcastle. Still the messages coming out where we're not happy with this, we want more trophies, we want to continue with this. There's going to be no drop off. So all the kind of messaging coming out of the football club from the manager and the players were right, but of course talk is cheap, and just went at it today. Too many players. I spoke about tactically the setup, but that wasn't the only reason. Just individually, too many players, even as more experienced players, just went at it today, and against the kind of rejuvenated, kind of refocused, I'd suggest, and really ultra determined Liverpool team, they just didn't have enough on the pitch.
And you think it might be a good thing as well? United supporters obviously will be really feeling this and they'll be really hurting, but as a way to refocus the team and say, look, we're not there yet, lads, that Ten Hag can show them there's a lot of improvement still to be done.
I think so. You never want a result like this, particularly against a team which are history against Liverpool at Anfield. Nobody wants that, no Manchester United player, manager or supporter, and Ten Hag certainly won't be going into that Manchester United dressing room after the game and saying, all right lads, I'll cut you a bit of slack, I'll give you your get out of jail card. That performance today, he won't accept that, what he saw second half from his players, and it just might be a reminder maybe to him, the coach and staff, And even the players, like I said, just a small little reality check, and he can put it out there to the wider public and the Manchester United support bases. Yeah, we're in a good place at the moment. I'm happy where we are, but there's still work to do, and that performance is evidence of it. We're still kind of on a journey there, and we still have some way to go.
And do you think, based on some of the performances today, are there some players that he might be looking at still shifting out of the club?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny you say that. You never judge maybe any player of one particular performance. And like I said, he couldn't be overly critical of any of these players prior to today's game because of that level of consistency which they have. But sometimes it just takes one game or a period of time in a game, an individual's performance, like his reaction, his attitude in a moment of adversity. And sometimes that can be enough for a manager. He'll see one person in a different light at that moment and say, and that'll be it. And he mightn't say it publicly. He might even admit it to anybody else. But in his own mind, he might say, no, that's it. That's the final straw. I can't have that. I can't trust that player. Yeah, I can trust him when things are going well and players are playing well around them. But kind of in moments in adversity when I needed him to step up, I didn't see it. And in fact, he switched off. He wasn't kind of interested. So I'm not saying there was too many of those performances, below par performances certainly. There was one moment in that second half, we mentioned it live on the commentary, when Bruno Fernandes got done 1v1 against Bajcetic, the substitute, when he came on close to the touchline, and he gave it up, Stephen, he gave it up. He stopped running. He walked back into the centre of the pitch as Bajcetic was driving down the touchline, almost saying, I'm not interested, one of you can deal with it. Absolutely no way Ten Hag will accept that, and I'll be amazed if he's not having a private conversation with Bruno Fernandes and saying, look, that is absolutely totally unacceptable going forward. That's not the type of lead I want to see from my senior professional players at the football club. That literally cannot happen again. So they're the type of things you have to really do it, have to nip in the bud, and you have to confront head on. But I think he will do. He's shown himself to be that type of manager so far in his Manchester United career.
And, to come from where they came from last season, they're almost guaranteed Champions League football for next season. It's looking like that once they can kind of keep that third place ahead of Liverpool. They might end up fourth. I
wouldn't say guaranteed, likely. I'd agree with you. Yeah, probably. But that'd be a slight worry, wouldn't it? That performance kind of second half.
Yeah, and they're still in the two trophies as well, Europa League, FA Cup, still a good chance of winning both of those. So.
And they're in a good place, and they're in a good place. And I was so surprised, like Martinez spoke about below par performance from him, Luke Shaw as well, lost his composure second half, Casemiro just a little bit out of sorts as well, so just too many of those performances all over the pitch. Human nature, you could say, a little bit of a drop off, hard to expect those constant high levels performance. They're only human beings at the end of the day, but certainly the Manchester United manager will be looking for a reaction from his players, a little bit of a bounce back, because like you say, one defeat, if that becomes 2, maybe 3 defeats on the spin, and the teams below them, the kind of Newcastle and Spurs, find a little bit of form in that period, all of a sudden they got teams breathing down their neck going into maybe the last half dozen games of the season, and suddenly that Champions League place isn't looking such a given. So he just has to be wary of that, but I'm sure he will. I'm sure that, like I said, the Manchester United manager will confront it.
Have we seen the first time this Liverpool team with their two new forwards, Gakpo and Nunez, combining with Salah? Is that the best performance we've seen? Well, we've got 2 goals from each player, so obviously it is. What do you think it is that clicked for those 3 today? Yeah,
well, funnily enough, no, I'm going to temper that. I actually didn't think the front 3 clicked, I've got to be honest with you. And the reason for that is Darwin Nunez' position on the left-hand side. Now, people throw back at me and say, what are you talking about? You're really good. He scored 2 goals today. What are you talking about? But if you look at those 2 goals today, there was no real combination interaction in the lead up to those goals. He basically got himself in a centre forward's position. The ball arrived in there and he got 2 headed goals. So even that suggests to me, even when he's asked to play on the left-hand side, his natural inclination wants to take him onto the inside into those central striking positions. So I think that's something, like I said, which Klopp will have to wrestle with going forward. I don't think Darwin Nunez is futures down the left-hand side. I think if he's going to have a long career at Liverpool and a successful one, it's going to be as a central striker. And I think he needs to get in there sooner rather than later. Gakpo has proved in his PSV career, and even when occasionally he's had minutes there for Liverpool, he can operate off the left-hand side with great effect. We saw that with the goal today, picking the ball up in a naturally wide left position, driving on the inside and putting it into the far corner. Nunez never looks as comfortable when he's driving in from that left-hand side. His head's never up. He never really sees the clever little pass of those little combinations. So that'll be interesting, particularly when Diaz and who's back already, comes back and they're banging on the manager's door for places. I think that situation will resolve itself. I don't see Darwin Núñez on Liverpool's left for the foreseeable future and going forward. I think if he's going to stay in this Liverpool team, it's going to have to be as a central striker.
Where does this leave Liverpool now, this result? Because, well, I want to ask you actually before I mention that, is the defence, because the defence has been poor by their own very high standards set over the last number of seasons, and I just wonder how key is the return of Ibrahim Konate coming in alongside Van Dijk, because look, Joel Matip has been a great servant for Liverpool, and when a lot of people had their doubts over him, he really, played some brilliant stuff for a couple of seasons for Liverpool alongside Van Dijk. He looks a bit slow this season, he hasn't found his best form. In comes Konate, and all of a sudden they're looking a lot safer at the back there. Yeah,
without a doubt, this is their strongest pairing. I think it has been for some time. Matip's been a fine server to the football club, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have those qualities, that the athleticism, the kind of dynamism, physicality really that Konate has. Even Joe Gomez disappointed me a little bit this season, maybe even the last kind of 12 months. Too many errors for him, individual mistakes. Still think he can be part of the squad going forward. It's maybe a third, fourth choice centre half. He can also fill in as a backup right back, so I wouldn't be pushing Joe Gomez out the door, but certainly that pairing of Konate and Virgil van Dijk, I think Liverpool supporters will probably say for some time that's their best pairing, and you need a strong right-sided centre half in this Liverpool team. We know the deficiencies that Trent has. We didn't see them today. Manchester United, as we spoke about, didn't exploit that today, but we've seen enough of that over the last 12-18 months to say it's going to be a continual problem for Liverpool going forward unless there's a massive change in mindset from Alexander-Arnold in terms of the quality he's defending. At least the Konate gives you that. He can slide across, he's got the recovery speed, is there, he's good in one kind of 1v1 situation. So he's going to be a very important player for Liverpool going forward and getting back to the level that they were at maybe 18 months, 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier as well that a couple of seasons ago they had a dreadful first half of the season, down in 8th position with 10 matches to go. They still finished in 3rd. That's great experience for them to have banked coming into this situation this season, which now all of a sudden doesn't look as bad as that season, because they're now just 3 points behind Tottenham with a game in hand. If they win that, they're into the 4th position by their better goal difference over Spurs. So would you say you're kind of looking at Liverpool thinking this team is going to finish top 4 this season?
Oh, I think they're in a great position at the moment. Yeah, probably about 6 weeks ago, probably wouldn't have said that. Stephen Doyle, so they're really kind of struggling. We know the kind of below par performance look very much out of sorts, kind of lacking confidence, no real kind of rhythm, cohesion to their play. But they've certainly found something over the past couple of weeks, and give the players and the manager credit for that. And that performance today, probably similar, probably first 20-25 minutes against Real Madrid, we got a kind of flavour of it. But we certainly got it for the majority of the game today. That kind of tenacity, physicality, energy levels, we haven't seen enough of that. I still think there's issues there within the squad that he's going to have to rectify in the summer. But what Liverpool have is they've got top quality across the attacking line, and I think they have defenders who are better individually than what they've been shown over the past 6 months. So if you can just find the right balance, and those, for me, it's that kind of central kind of midfield position is still absolutely key. Some good performances in there today, absolutely. Harvey Elliott in particular put down a marker to say, you've got to pick me now as one of those trio of central midfield players. But kind of going forward, Liverpool need to have to find some more quality, some more energy in that central area of the pitch, and I think that's a given. I think that will be rectified in the summer. Easily said and done, because a lot of players are chasing the type of midfielder that I'm talking about, high energy, technically, box to box, kind of athletic kind of midfield player. Chelsea are after them. Manchester United may even be chasing them as well. You know who I'm talking about? Talking about the likes of Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Mason maybe Mount, one or two others. Yeah, Mason may be totally different type of player, more of an attack-minded central midfield player. But Liverpool need to be in the hunt, and certainly guaranteeing Champions League football next season will help them in terms of making their pitch for those particular players in the summer.
Are Real Madrid a little bit worried now? 5-2 up in the last 16 tie with Liverpool.
Oh, it'll certainly get their attention.
Yeah, there's no pressure on Liverpool going to the Bernabeu.
Yeah, you free hit.
A goal or two early on.
All the cliches are going to come out.
5-2 is a dangerous lead.
Nothing to lose. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is a free hit, but you got to be careful. It can't be a free hit in terms of let's throw everything at them, kitchen sink and pile forward.
Yeah.
Can't do that against a team of this quality, Real Madrid. They just pick you off and kind of embarrass you. But yeah, I think it's just performance now from Liverpool week to week. It's just kind of performance levels. Just have to replicate what we saw this afternoon against Manchester United. Far sterner test, obviously, against Real Madrid. But psychologically, mentally, they're in a good place. They'll be feeling good about themselves. Again, another clean sheet today. You always look for the small detail. Another clean sheet. Is that like 4 or 5 maybe? On the bounce, take out the Real Madrid game. A glut of goals today, really good individual performances, and a real cohesion to their play, which I haven't seen for a while. You know, they looked defensively solid for the majority of that game. The high press was good. Didn't allow Manchester United into their half. Too much sustained pressure on their goal, and popped the ball around nicely and had a real cutting edge kind of high up the pitch. So all those things augur well for the Real Madrid game. It gives them a fighting chance. So when I say a fighting chance, I'm talking a fighting chance of going there and maybe winning the game, you know, by small margins. I'm not talking a fighting chance of going and turning that tie around. I think they should really push those thoughts to the side. It's about performance levels, going there, giving a good account of yourself, putting it up to Real Madrid, and coming off that pitch, the Bernabeu, which are held head high, and kind of proud of your performance, irrespective of the result.
Interestingly, their next two opponents, United and Liverpool in Europe, Betis and Madrid, meet tonight in Seville. That'll be an interesting game to watch. Just to ask you finally, Kenny, because you're on duty, I know, yesterday covering the Arsenal-Bournemouth match, and unfortunately you had to get off the air fairly quick, but I just wanted to get your opinion on that game, because that had the feeling of a season-defining game. Is that too much to put on that result? But
no.
Like Arsenal were behind twice. They conceded in the first minute, score with a winner in the 7th minute of added time. That really had a feeling of a season-defining result for them.
Yeah, and of course, only time will tell at the end of the season. You look back at those kind of key moments and turning points. But you're absolutely right. Remember a game maybe about 6 weeks ago, home game against West Ham, 1-0 down at half time, covering that game as well. You felt, this is a real test against a kind of defensively solid team, breaking down second half, and they did it that night. But this even more so this game against Bournemouth, team expected to win, just kind of roll all over. Give Bournemouth credit, thought they'd done great first half. Defensive structure was great, could have actually been 2-0 up at half time, eventually got themselves 2-0 ahead. And then we're talking in studio, me and Damien Delaney there, immediately I'm thinking, right, what's the odds? 3-2 for the Arsenal. I must admit I didn't see it. 3 goals, I thought, no, I don't see it. 2-2, oh, here we go. Yeah, absolutely, it was on. But funny enough, they lost a little bit of momentum after that. There was a couple of VAR things going on. The game got kind of fragmented. It lost a little bit of the rhythm, which kind of suited Bournemouth. And at that point, as they were it was limping towards the end of the game, I did feel as if the opportunity was lost, but give Arsenal credit, just kept believing, kept pushing, kept driving. We're speaking about having pictures of the classic Phoenix from the Flames, Manchester United v Sheffield Wednesday. That was United's first league title, was it? That was 2 late goals under that Steve Bruce header, wasn't it? Yeah. The last one of the game. A little bit of a sense of that when the goal went in, that kind of feeling. Do you know the way the whole stadium, not so much the goal, I'm not saying the goals or something like that, but the reaction to the goal, obviously what it meant in terms of the win, but the reaction with the crowd literally all went off. You could feel it. You know what I mean? People jumping around, not knowing what to do, wanting to kiss people, to kiss anybody in, not knowing how to celebrate almost the players, the fans. It was just literally all went off there, you know what I mean? And that was great to see. You can almost get a sense of that in the studio watching it. So yeah, you always feel as if potentially you sense it, don't you? That's big. Something big has happened there. But ultimately, of course, we'll only know at the end of the season. And they still have to play City, so it will be an interesting last 10, 12 games. Kenny, thanks very much.